We just got, right. We just got to approval of the minutes, and Rick had a question about the width of the easement on not Step Lane.
All
Right.
right, so did you read the blurb we're gonna do at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, except that you weren't here to respond present to, so
okay,
Lee can add you to the
all right,
I've got it down that we lost him and returned at 4:08 PM.
excellent, great.
Okay, here's what I know. There is a way wide enough for vehicles down to Virginia, known as Ginger Andrews. In which case, the question on easement would be relevant because it doesn't have to be the full width of the way. Or that section may already be public, we don't know. The pedestrian way beyond Ginger's house is probably only just wide enough for a 5-foot easement anyhow.
Hmm.
But I can say all of this without being definitive. And so I'll make a note to ask Ken Bogrand to give us details or perhaps the sketch map.
Great. Okay, anything else on the minutes? Then we'll turn it over to Bill.
okay, so we have a motion to accept the minutes with any amendments needed.
No, that's all done.
It's all done? Well,
Yeah.
you get it. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the Francis Street Beach concession lease. And first off, I should say that, did you do a roll call on the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Ed Gillum sends along his wishes. He's following Lee's footsteps. He's on the other side of the big pond. He couldn't make it today. Next on the agenda is a Francis Street Beach concession lease. In your packet, I sent out a letter that I sent on our behalf when the lease was up for consideration for this year, as well as I followed up with the lease once I got a hold of it. And so the select board and whomever advised them decided that it was good enough as written. I wanted to bring it up in front of the board here because I don't believe that it is. I believe there's an issue. Did you get everybody get a chance to read the lease as it was signed for this year? If not, I can put it up on the screen.
I did, Bill, and from reading the contract, it does not, I don't think it has that thing in there about the 40 feet and there's no specific marking of what is the area that they're responsible for and what is the town.
Right.
So, and your picture, the pictures of all of the boards there taking up the whole space are clearly in conflict with what that drawing shows of where the 40 feet goes from one side to the middle of the beach, and that's their responsibility. So,
right.
So I guess what I'm saying is that, okay, I see that.
I'll scroll down to that photo in a second. The first thing that I noticed in the verbiage was the fact that it talks about vehicle access to the beach, and that's what the town was hanging its hat on, saying, well, that ensures pedestrian access. So I think of all the beaches in the world on Nantucket, trying to ensure vehicle access to the Francis Street Beach is not what we hope for access to a beach area for driving. We certainly aren't encouraging that. nowhere does it say pedestrian access. And as you've noted, Phil, this is the photo now that's included in the lease. And when you look at it, it's problematic to get there because it's not inviting or clear for a pedestrian how to get to where they're gonna go, because the rental shack is here, and they have chairs and stuff set up where their quote, registration desk is and stuff. So if you pull up to that area, it looks like the concession thing takes the whole enchilada. And then I don't know if you remember the photos that I had shared from last year, which I think might be in the packet also, where the boats were, and they clearly took up far more than they were entitled to. So all said and done, I think that there should have been something in there for pedestrian access, and there isn't. And there clearly have been violations over the years, and we know that enforcement is one of the weakest links that we have from all of our different committees and bylaws and stuff. So I'm going to take it upon myself to go down there with a ruler, or not a ruler, but a tape measure, and check to see where 40 feet actually takes you. Anyhow, so that's my thought. And I did get a follow-up email from the town manager, and she thought that Charlie Palacci's response, that it was good enough. She agreed with that, and she believed that it was a correct response to our concern. So I don't think so, but I wanted to hear what the committee thought.
Bill?
Yep.
Yeah, the question, of course, is enforcement. Over the years, what's happened, that operation down there has expanded. They used to have just kayaks, and now they have kayaks, and they have the paddle boards, and there's all sorts of other stuff there. And last summer, you couldn't even walk down to the beach. All their stuff was lined up along the waterfront there. So the issue is really, who's going to enforce it? That would be the responsibility of the town. So maybe if we notice this summer that they've expanded beyond the limits that they were assigned in the program, that maybe a call to the selectman's office, maybe to Erica, to just alert the town that there is in fact an issue there.
Anybody else have a comment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I
Go ahead,
mean, the guy that has this lease is one of the most upstanding people around here, Brian Fitch. I don't know why we can't just talk to him.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I wasn't picking on the owner. I mean, the lease guy, that's to me, that's beside the point. The point
Okay.
is the town lease, and what really bothers me, quite frankly, if we can't get the governing body to understand the importance of pedestrian access, guaranteeing pedestrian access to something as simple as that beach, then how the hell are we going to get the idea of access to more difficult areas? I mean, that to me was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So that's what
I think that vehicle term that's in there is, I know we talked on the phone the other day, did you think that had something to do with like delivering and backing up onto the beach to kind of unload and load stuff because there's no place to park? I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I
That's what
don't know
I was
why,
thinking.
I don't know why they would have to ensure vehicle access for the guy for the leasee himself.
Yeah,
I would think there would be vehicle access, much as it was concerned for Hulbert Avenue at the end of James. When the discussion there, and they said, well, if we need to pull a boat, you could always pull it. Well, you can't pull it at James Street because of the bulkhead. But you certainly could. You could launch the sea legs from, which is the town boat. From there, if you needed to, you could, anyway, it's one of the few beaches. It's sort of like, the first access point off the Hulbert Avenue on the corner there, which is one of the few you can still get to. And you can drive onto the beach there.
you're talking about Johnson and Johnson.
Correct,
spot?
That's Charles Street.
right.
Yeah,
So those are the last couple, and also, the beach area down at, by Consu at the end of Washington Extension. There are a few places like that around the island. But anyhow, that was my concern, just,
Bill, I'm going to suggest a twofold
Yep.
approach. Let's ask the town to insert the word pedestrian where it says vehicle access and explain why.
Yeah.
And then for Nat's comment, that's the Nantucket way. Let's just reach out and talk to the lessee. If he knows we're concerned, it may cure it all.
yeah, I was thinking more of going for, future licenses, but yeah, that's certainly doable. And now that the board has discussed it, if we all concur, I'll send them an email or formal request that we have taken the approach that we would request them to insert pedestrian access as is part of our blah, 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 that whole scenario. So if the board concurs, I will do that.
So is that, just to be clear, Bill, is that something they would insert in the next version? Because they've already approved this one.
I
And I
think
think
that's,
they'll get some immediate, pushback. So if they, I think it's a lot easier to put it in next time.
I would say, yeah.
for the,
We have it
for the
for the
renewal.
Yeah, 'cause
I mean, it
it's,
has to be renewed, right? He gets
That's-
renewed,
it's a 3-year lease, I think.
yeah,
So
so just,
when it comes up again, we ask them to put it in, and then if
Well,
they
I
do
think
it beforehand, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think we put it in now just so it's on the record that.
I agree. And does anybody know the leaseholder? I mean, usually if there's a personal relationship, it's a nice way to make contact. I don't happen to know him, but maybe
I-
somebody.
I do. I mean, I have a cell, I can talk.
It
to
wouldn't
him.
hurt, Nat, if you know him,
I think the most important thing is to know clearly mark, or I don't know about marking, but knowing exactly what the lease space is. I mean, I think that's the biggest issue. And there's a lot of, there's young kids running that in the summertime, so, maybe they don't know some of the details,
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
I can certainly reach out to him. I did mention it to him like a while ago that, to kind of like check into this, but I didn't talk to him very much about it. This is a way back when this first came up. But I haven't spoken to him since then.
all right, so if there's anybody that disagrees with the fact, speak up now, otherwise I'll take it as a consensus that I'll draft something.
Okay,
Seeing nothing, okay, thank you. We sent out a advanced scout team, Explorer Saperstein, to go check out the Harbor Walk, and he's got a report for us on that. Lee?
Yeah, Bill, if I may share a screen,
Sure, it should be.
let's see
able
what
to.
happens. All right. Last week I had an old collegiate friend stay with me, and so we explored, and down at the bottom, just above where it says GIS, there's a little hook on the walkway, and that goes into the Hayes property, which is gorgeous. Alan, thank the land bank one more time. As we move northwestward, I don't know whether you can see my cursor,
Mhm.
but there is a proposal that at the end of East Creek Road, there be a viewing platform, because a lot of this is wetland beyond here. If one goes down the boat ramp area in front of Sales, you can get onto the beach and walk all the way up to where Kansu creeks empty out into the harbor. So all of that's good. This little bump out here is, again, we're moving northeastward, is the Great Harbor Yacht Club, and that's well marked. Somewhere in here at about number 80 Washington Street, the only way you can get around that condo is at very, very low tide or to have waders. All of this on the wharves is well marked until we get around to Steamboat Wharf. And crossing Steamboat Wharf and the gap of the Nantucket Yacht Club is, I'm not sure it's an issue, but it does mean the Harbor Walk would have to come down to Beach Street and make its way back around to the water. Now, Children's Beach, good. And alongside the White Elephant, also a very nice walkway. And then, here's where I'm going to be asking for help, Bill. I think we need to ask maybe planning or one of the transportation people that numbers 16, which is way up here, all the way back to 46 Eastern Street, is one huge construction zone. And it was clear to me, because I tried to get down to the water and was stopped by a construction foreman. It's not safe to be on these lands. Well, are you familiar, says I, with the notion that you've got to provide access along the intertidal lands? Huh? Chapter 91 was a foreign language to him. And so I'm suggesting that we ask the town to send out notices to these landowners. By the way, at number 46, you look down and that would be right about here. At number 46 is a nice little beach area, but there's a drop off from the White Elephant walkway to that beach area. And I wasn't prepared to jump down because I wasn't sure how I could get back up again. Now, the last thing, and it's actually longer than I show here on the map. We were stopped by the Coast Guard. Sorry, sir, this is federal property, no trespassing. I said, does Massachusetts chapter 91 pertain to federal lands? We don't know, sir, but you can't cross here. And so, prudence being the better part of valor, we turned around alongside what used to be the boathouse and is now the propagation facility. One can get down to the water. You can actually walk from Coast Guard land up to the old slipway, and that's difficult to get under, and there is no stairs, but you can go around and then go all the way up to Brant Point. So, Bill, that's my report. The request is that we send a note probably to the planning board asking for some kind of a notification to the landowners on Eastern Street that chapter 91 applies to their lands. With an addendum, would somebody please check whether or not chapter 91 applies to federal lands? There you have it, Bill.
Okay. You want to take down your screen?
Yes, sorry.
No. Thank you. So a recap would be, so we're thinking the plus department to send the query to, Lee?
Yes,
Okay. And that's
16 down to
16.
46.
16 to 46, so that's part A, and part B is the query, is the Coast Guard property exempt from chapter 91? Okay. Discussion on that request?
Bill, a question. I think I'll talk to Lee, after the meeting or another time, but I am curious as to, for example, on Easton Street, there are a lot of red in front of some lots. And who was deciding to put the line where it is? And who decided where there isn't a line? So,
Okay, Rick, it's an easy answer. That was a sketch map drawn by me. It's not authoritative.
yeah, okay, I think that's what we need to talk about, because it ought to be good all the way through there. It's sort of presumptive that that's our intent. At least I like that idea, rather than giving breaks when none may be called for. But I think that's a matter of what the map is trying to show. In other words, our desire, our intent, our ideal, or is it trying to show specific instances of a chapter 91 license or not? So we're all clear on what it is.
Right. I want to actually task Rob and Nat to go back into your Wayback Machine. I'm not sure, Nat was probably 3 when this all happened, but if you remember back, or some of us might remember back, when there was a big brouhaha about access across the yacht club bulkhead. And at one point in that chain link fence, there used to be a gate there, and you could access, actually before the chain link fence, you could just walk over there. But then the chain link fence went up and it had a gate. And I remember there was an ongoing battle for, my term battle, I don't know how much of a battle was, but discussion, and it kind of got sort of heated with the town, the steamship authority, the yacht club, and whatever. And then that gate went away. Did either one of you
Are
fellas?
you talking about the old yacht club, Eddie Aldridge back in the day? Or are you talking about now?
Back when
Bill, I remember it well. So I may not have been a resident of the island, but I was certainly reading the newspaper. It's not that long ago. And yes, there was a discussion. And I think that this is just a dim memory, so we need to do a little research. But I think the town yielded to the yacht club on the premise that the walkway would cause a safety hazard to people who didn't understand boats.
I'll be happy to comment, and Alan may as well. I was on the board for that discussion.
This is-
The select board had with the yacht club and with the steamship folks. And 2 things. One, the steamship has I think, a good concern about traffic going back and forth along the way, and felt uncomfortable that a walkway coming through the gate
Oh,
would be open to coming across that.
I'm sorry.
It's a very rational concern.
sorry.
Yeah, because that
Mr. Chair, I just don't want you guys to think I've lost my mind. You're talking about the old money yacht club, not the new money yacht club.
Yeah, the old yacht club.
Rick.
Nantucket Yacht
I'm
Club,
sorry.
that adjacent to Steamboat Wharf.
Yeah,
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 that
I'm
place,
sorry. I got mixed up.
Nat, it's the place we couldn't go to.
So
Place we couldn't go to. Yeah. Now, so Rick is probably right about this, and there is some kind of recorded, I don't know, unrecorded easement sort of weird thing there. That is, there was a beach there at one time. There wasn't a bulkhead, just like the Angles Club.
Right, so that was one issue. And the other issue was about in front of the yacht club. And my pretty clear recollection is we came to what we might call a agreed upon standstill. And I think it was actually in writing between the parties that no
Yeah.
decisions were made. Lee, that's a little contrary to your recollection about one way or another to deal with the issue of whether or not Chapter 91 can actually go in front of the yacht club or whether it has to go around the yacht club. Alan, is that sort of your recollection? I'm not sure. Were you on the board then?
I remember the discussion about it and the fact that I believe the gate is still there. Or
It's
that,
not.
oh,
No,
it's not? No. I don't remember the outcome of it other than I know that there was no pedestrian access across the club property. That was the result. I don't know how that decision came about, but
Well, I think at the time, I think Patty Rogovan and I were the select board subcommittee to deal with the yacht club. And I'm pretty sure on my recollection, we can go back and check the documents, but in the meantime, I think I'm pretty much on target there.
Bill, I'm going to, when I drop the minutes, I'll draft a little note to the Plus department and share it with you. If you like it, send it to Andrew Vorse, because I bet he can either remember or lay his fingers on the documents a lot faster than we can.
Okay. All right, is that okay with everybody?
Yeah,
Okay, and then on the back at the other end of it, the other yacht club, the new yacht club, as Lee said, they've documented that walkthrough through there, and it's interesting looking back and now looking ahead, how when that new yacht club came in, there was a definite push to ensure public access across that property, which was a different push from shutting down in front of the old yacht club and saying, okay, there's no access at that bulkhead, but there's got to be access across the property. So anyhow, the difference in treatment between the two, I guess, reflects the sign of the times then and now. But if you can do that, Lee, that'd be great, and then we can at least document all of this.
Well, yes, and with the goal, I think an achievable goal of opening up parts of Easton Street to Chapter 91.
Yeah.
Because there is, some of them have beach in front of them, or a walkway could be provided.
Yeah, and who knows, are there any public ways down that section of Easton Street that we haven't identified? Lee, Alan? No, Rick.
Well, I think in the, I think it's 46 of the property right next to the White Elephant.
Yeah.
Just went through a whole Concom hearing and a Chapter 91 hearing with the state, and has agreed, as I recall, to allow access from Easton to the beach. And there, once you get to the beach, we're allowed to walk in the intertidal zone by right. So the Harbor Walk can go across that property. What should have been done, but it wasn't by any of our town fathers, was to make sure that Chapter 91 redo provided for a way to get from the end of the walkway at the White Elephant down to the beach, which could easily be accomplished. It takes a little work, it might take a walkway, but it could be done.
To add to the observations, there are several finger piers out into the harbor, and at least one of them has got the necessary steps to get up and over.
So
You just can't get to the bottom of the steps.
Right, it's the same thing that occurred just to the west side of the new yacht club.
Yeah.
Where people talked about stairs or having to go underneath those bulkheads. And it was a big discussion, and I'm not sure it was ever memorialized what the workaround was, but it was clearly a matter of public interest that that party had to agree to some way to get through.
So here's an open question which we haven't yet discussed. Remain paid for a major planning effort for a harbor walk, but I haven't heard much from them lately. Has anybody else?
Phil, you're on that committee, right?
I haven't heard any.
I have some information there. First of all, when we were laying out the plan, the concept for the harbor walk, originally the idea was to go from Brant Point all the way out to the Otison property. And at the time, our committee identified the places where you couldn't get by. When we were dealing with the Great Harbor Yacht Club, those markers that you see in the ground with the blue arrows and so on that say public access around that property, those were developed as a result of our committee's work on as far as the public way access in the Chapter 91 issue. Those markers now have been used at various other places in town, next to the Dreamland Theater to get around, next to what, Charlie Noble's or whatever that place is to get over to the street. As far as the harbor walk itself, the Steamship Authority had a couple of years ago, I think that they must still be there. They had harbor walk signs on the wharves and around, and once you got around to the Anglers Club and so on, it must have been NIR that put those up, and I'm sure that it had to do with public access there. In terms of what Remain Nantucket did, they hired engineers. They had Horsley Witten, they had a couple of other engineers, and they laid out a route from, I believe it was from the Anglers Club all the way out to the Otison property, going out around Spruce Street. And those records must be somewhere in the records of Remain. The engineering work was pretty amazing that they did, because again, conditions have probably changed now with sea level rise and all the other stuff that's going on, but they had a route and they had a plan and the engineering structures that were needed to get all the way around Poverty Point, Spruce Street, and down that way.
Folks, I'll pen a note to the executive director of Remain, indicating that we have a continued interest in the harbor walk. What status do they have? And then ask what status do they have?
Could I just remind us all that Remain came to one of our meetings with all the big maps? I mean, and we had a long discussion at that board meeting, a committee meeting, and in fact, encouraged them, for example, to modify a couple of sections and have a more proactive approach to making sure we follow the waterfront all the way around. And this was primarily related to the property when you come out of town and take the bike path across the old road bed and get to Orange Street. and turn left and going back into that road that goes down to some, to make sure the bike path could go around them, even if it meant, you know, having some construction of a walkway. And I think they were receptive to that idea at the time. I emailed a map to Lee. I'll email it to the rest of you. It has a date. I have in my files from those days of January 2018. And it has a harbor walk, I think, idealized path on it. And I suspect it was related to the material developed by Remain, but I'm not certain of that. It doesn't say Remain. It looks like a GIS map. So I think we'll share that with everybody.
So Rick, have you, I don't imagine you had a chance to compare that to the layout that, oh, how soon you forget his name, our planner that was here for a while, a transportation planner, just before he left, they released the next version of the extension of the bike path from end of Washington across the land bank property, across to the Hayes property.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I wasn't sure where it was from, but it was quite close to the one labeled 2018. And I'm sure we can get a copy of that one. And I think it would also be instructive.
Yeah, because I think that the latest one actually has a ballpark price tag on each of the phases. I mean, it's a substantial amount of money, and the prelude to it, I guess, or the comparison that you can think of is what it cost and the hoops they had to jump through to follow the railroad bed through Consu to get all the DEP regs and squared away. And so in front of the island home and all of that, it's going to be a pretty long, drawn out process. Lee?
I'm guessing that our transportation improvement plan is adding another section of bicycle, it's not path, the wide area on Orange Street. If you recall, a lot of work was done on Orange Street, but it didn't connect the entire segment. Back this afternoon, I watched a cyclist on Orange Street, and then as soon as it got to the wider section, pull over into the bicycle lane. And I think what Patrick Reed was giving us was the next phase on that. Without it in front of me, it's a guess.
Yeah, I recall the presentation included going through in front of the island home, the water side, through the land bank park that was Bachman's property, across the Otison property, coming out by the Hayes property, and then crossing over Milestone on that side, on the Sconset side of the rotary. We may be around to see it happen, or we may not.
Well, I think what's going to happen with sea level rise and all that sort of thing, the land bank has been working along Washington Street. We own many of the properties along Washington Street, and the town resilience plan, I believe it is. There are all sorts of structures now that they're talking about in terms of an elevated bike path. You know, and redoing that all that property along Washington Street. So I think we have a ways to go before those plans get settled in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good sort of segue, because that can be a shared harbor walk and bike path whenever we get there. So.
Right.
It also could be canoe rental area as the whole bike path becomes like Italy. Okay, so if you wanted to fire that up, Lee, and then we can put that in the packet. Okay, anybody else have anything on the harbor walkway? If not, Let's bounce over to Bruce Mandel is on, and he's the sponsor of Article 71, which is the motorized units on what used to be called bike paths. Bruce?
Point of order, Bill, I opened up the draft warrant, and was previously listed as Article 72. Has the Finance Committee version changed the number?
Bruce, do you know?
I don't know. It's been changed several times. The Finance Committee had it first as, I think, 39, and then it changed to 72 and then 71. So I'm just waiting for the warrant. I mean, the substance of the article is the same. They just keep changing the number. Does that answer the question?
Let's not dwell on this. I'll check the number when I do the minutes.
Okay. Bruce, you want to give us an overview of that article?
Yes, it's very simple. It does two things. It updates the chapter as to motorized personal vehicles that are listed. I'll get to that in a second. And the second thing it does is it equates bike paths, which are now known as side paths by the town, with sidewalks. What Chapter 98 does, and it was formulated almost 2 decades ago, was it said that you can't operate, and it listed 3 types of what it called personal motorized passenger devices. It listed a motorized scooter, that's a 1-seat bike you see operating on the island. It listed a motorized skateboard and a Segway. Now, at the time, those were the technologies that they were concerned about being operated on town-owned or controlled public ways, sidewalks, parks, playgrounds, or beaches. Since that time, technology has advanced, and we now have motorized mopeds, which are 2-seated scooters. You have motorized bicycles. You've got 1-wheel roller boards. That's a board with a roll in the middle of them that some of the kids are using. You've got balance boards that are like unicycles without handlebars. And you've got what they call razor boards, which is like a skateboard with a handlebar on it, and it's got a motorized little brake and throttle. Those are all new technologies that should be added to Chapter 98 as not being permitted on sidewalks, public ways, parks, playgrounds, or beaches. That's one part of the article. Adding those new technologies that shouldn't be allowed on sidewalks, for example. Well, since that time, almost 20 years ago, we added about 30 miles of side paths. We have a beautiful one in Matticat that goes all the way down to the beach. And you could take that all the way into town. And that is not just used for pedal bicycles anymore. It's being used by pedestrians who are walking to and from the bus stops that are lining the bike path. There are benches for people to sit on once they get to the bus stop. You got people like me that walk on them with families, who are pushing baby scooters and strollers and things like that. And they mix well with the pedaled bicycles. There haven't been too many problems. I personally have been hit by electric bicycles twice in Matticat, once knocking down my granddaughter, which caused a couple of stitches in her chin, and once which just knocked me down. In neither case did the electric bicycle rider stop. They slowed down, looked back, and went, "Oh, sorry," and continued. So the article intends to add side paths to the list of the items in Chapter 98, so that these personal motorized passenger devices shouldn't be operated on a town-owned or controlled public way, sidewalk, side path, or bicycle path, or multi-use path, whatever they're gonna call them now, any park, playground, or beach. And that's all this article does. It basically equates the use of these motorized personal devices on sidewalks and also on side paths or bike paths. So that's the only thing it does. Safety, and it adds a list of the new technology items.
Thanks, Bruce.
Bru-
Anybody have any questions for Bruce?
Yeah,
Lee?
how did the finance committee treat that?
The finance committee was interesting. They were supportive, but they raised some odd issues by some very influential folks on the finance committee, whose main concern was they had recently purchased electric bicycles and they wanted to use them on the bike path rather than on the roads because they felt it was safer for them. Their electric bikes can go up to 40 miles an hour, but they can be regulated down to about 12. There's 3 levels of electric bicycles. The slowest ones go up to about 12 miles an hour. Now, the average human being like me, who's in bad shape, I can walk on the bike path at about 3 or 3.5 miles an hour. If I get hit by something doing 12 miles an hour, it's like me getting hit by an NFL linebacker. You can imagine what it's like going 30. But to answer your question, was 2 or 3 influential people on the finance committee thought that this was a bad idea. These electric vehicles should be allowed on sidewalks, and they have voted to take no action.
Everybody else have
I
any-
asked the same question of Mike Burns when he was here, and he said state law limits the speed of vehicles on bike paths to 15 miles an hour. So to quote Alan from an earlier discussion, we're not sure how that's enforced, but state law says 15.
Yes, that was, I discussed that with them, and they said, well, why don't the police just issue tickets to the electric vehicles? And it's not just bicycles, it's the roller boards, the uniboards. Why don't they just give them tickets for exceeding the speed limit? And the answer, when we discussed this with the town and Chief Pittman was there, it's impossible for the policeman to be there with a radar gun or some kind of speed detection device when something like this is happening. They have 1 police officer stationed to patrol the entire West End, 1 center and 1 east of the island. And they don't have really the effort and the logistics to monitor all of the speeds of these electric vehicles on the bike path.
Everybody else have any questions for Bruce?
I don't have a question. I just have I want to apologize. I have to leave the meeting in a minute. And Bruce, nothing personal. I think you've got a real issue here. I think the bike folks were concerned about this, and what I'm concerned, you can just see the bikes speed out from the main rotary by the I&M. They cross the walkway and then they gun it, and you say, holy tamales. I mean, it's a real issue. I don't know what the solution is. Your recommendation may be, but it's going to be interesting. So thanks for bringing it up.
Well, that's great. Thank you. You know, at the very least, these electric devices should be added to Chapter 98. Whether you want to say they shouldn't be on the bike paths, that's a separate issue. But interestingly enough, one of the complaints was, if these electric bikes can't use the bike path, how will people get to work? And my comment was, they have to use the roads in order to get to the bike paths, and they're using them now. So it was kind of an interesting narrative, but it wasn't based on research. It was kind of an emotional, I don't like being restricted. I want to be able to ride on the bike paths.
Are you going to call the article, Bruce?
Excuse me?
Are you going to call the article?
You know what? I'm considering calling it, but you know, I've been through this so many times, Lee. that my attitude is if the town fathers don't want to protect the citizens on the sidewalks and bike paths, you know, you get tired of tilting at windmills when these folks have other issues and they won't tell you what they are. They just say, vote no. It's difficult to fight these things.
Nat,
Yeah, can I just, Bruce, I appreciate your effort. You know, maybe you and I can have some agreements on mopeds parking downtown all day in July for free, taking up 25 feet. This one on Easton Street right now, that's been there since December. Okay?
But this isn't a
No,
parking.
I'm gonna let me talk, okay? I got a lot to say about this, and I'm not gonna be negative or positive. I'm just gonna be truthful, okay? These electric bikes come out of nowhere. I mean, all of a sudden they're here. So, you know, let's just talk about the width of our roads, okay? We seem to think Sconset Road, we tried to get it widened a little bit. You know how wide Sconset Road is? You ready? 20 feet. I've measured it in about 5 places. 20 feet? Do you know that Vespa Lane is wider than Sconset Road? Just so you know, okay? The boulevard is 22 feet in between the berms. Perfect. You cannot pass mopeds that easily on Sconset Road without, it's kind of dangerous, okay? So I agree with you that these electric bikes should not be on sidewalks. You can't hear them, they're silent. You haven't said anything about that yet. What's gonna end up happening is people are gonna get hit by an electric car too, okay? Because you can't hear them. There's no sound, okay? So you're walking aimlessly, crossing streets here without looking. People, this is the place to cross the street whenever you feel like it on this island. I think there's an invisible sign to people that come here. Don't look, just cross, and everybody will slam on their brakes. But they're very, very dangerous on sidewalks, okay? Now, helmets, sorry about that. My phone's ringing. I think we need to sort of find a new way to start. You know, Lepre was really vocal about helmets on bikes, 10, 12 years ago. And now that kind of faded away. And I do agree with you that there's a newfound freedom movement now in the last 4 or 5 years, 3 years, that's sort of kind of gotten out of control. And whatever someone thinks freedom is different than what we think freedom is. But I think we got to start over a little bit. Okay, so it wasn't too long ago, Bruce, that you had people with rollerblades on the bike paths.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's one lady that rollerblades. That's it. One. When she comes for the summer, we know it's summer. Okay, I'm serious. There is one person with rollerblades. I don't know any. There's nobody doing it. There was actually skis with wheels on them for a couple years. They faded out. Okay. So this is just one more thing, but here's the catch, Bruce. It's green. Doesn't burn gas.
Supposedly, yeah.
It's cooling the planet, if you believe in that nonsense. So you're not going to be able to get rid of these things. I don't think we should. But I think we need to have some sort of this is like lowering the drinking age. I mean, all of a sudden, this has just happened. Okay. I mean, I went through the drinking age when we couldn't figure out what to have it at, 18, 19, 20, and then back to, blah, blah, blah. But grew a beard, you could buy beer in the 11th grade. But this is different. This deserves a lot of thinking, a lot of education, whether it's in the schools, it needs to be, we got everybody to put a mask on in about 2.1 milliseconds coming off the fast boat. I think there needs to be an education process with these things. The kids are whipping around corners on sidewalks. I've seen it. You're not wrong about what you're saying, but I think we just got to be wicked careful because this is a positive It doesn't make traffic. They can park anywhere. You know, we just gotta be careful. Okay? I'm not saying I'm against, I do like the sidewalk part of your article, but I'm not sure about bike paths. Bike paths should be 10 feet wide. Most of the new ones are. Shoulders of roads. There's a lot of other parts and pieces that need to be looked at with this. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just, you know.
I know you feel better than that.
Can I take a second? Let me take a second. I appreciate your comments, of course, and as to the silence, you know, there are many states now that are requiring electric vehicles to have a noise generator on them. Tennessee is one of them. I don't know about Massachusetts, but this article doesn't seek to get rid of any of these vehicles. It's just adding them to the list. And one thing you didn't mention is that there's no age limit. You know, we can put somebody in a car, they need a license, they got to pass the tests, and then they have to be a certain age. I can put a 10-year-old on an electric bike and have them run 40 miles an hour.
Good point. Yep.
So there's a lot to go. And the enforcement of this article is meant to be passive, you know, like some of the other articles. There's no bicycle police or electric police going to be assigned to enforce this. This is more of something to let, for example, the businesses that are renting the electric bicycles, when you rent the bicycle, you tell them you can't go on the bike path if you're going to go more than 15 miles an hour. Yeah. Bless you, Alan.
Thank you.
Lee,
This is an issue that's not going to go away. It's going to be with us for a while. Mike Burns used to come fairly regularly to our meetings in the hopes that we can persuade him to take up that practice. Let's have a list of things that we'd like to work with him on or work on with him. And motorized vehicles on sidewalks and bike paths should be one of them. And let's hope that the transportation planner can come up with some ideas, particularly if the Warren article doesn't pass.
I would suggest to the committee that you pass a positive motion here, at least adding the devices to chapter 98 and leave the discussion of equating sidewalks with side paths, you know, leave that for another day. But you could pass a positive motion to add the list of new technology vehicles to chapter 98. That would at least keep them off the sidewalks.
Yeah, but unless the article's called, that would be tilting at a windmill.
everybody else have a thought?
So I'm gonna lower my hand.
Have we, Bruce, sorry, Mr. Chairman, through you, have we gone to, I know traffic safety has been vanished for a few months. It just came back. They had a meeting last month. Have you issued sent an email to Erica and Arthur's Barrow about this discussion, having this discussion with the chief and with the chief and with, a few others? This is something that really needs to get, a real conversation has to happen with this. I forgot about the age thing. The age thing is a great point. I forgot about that.
Well, Nat, to answer your question, yes, I did send this to Libby and to Erica and to the chief.
Yeah.
The chief came back and he agreed that this was a very serious concern. He mentioned enforcement was difficult, obviously, and he felt that some people react poorly when there are bicycles, mopeds, scooters, electric vehicles on the roads, and it leads to some incidents of road rage where a car has difficulty getting around them, or bicycle riders on the street are blocking the ability to pass, things like that. So he acknowledged that this is a problem and they shouldn't be on the sidewalk. But, the police, from his perspective, He was concerned about enforcement. And of course, it's passive enforcement, so that kind of assuaged that concern. And the other concern he had was road rage, and none of us on this meeting today can deal with that. But I met with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Yeah, yeah,
They agreed that this was an issue and they would take it up later. And then the chairman of that committee was not at that meeting. And they said, we'll take this up at our next meeting. And then there was a select board meeting. No, there was a FinCom meeting. And the chairman of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee made a statement that that committee voted not to support the article. And when I challenged that, saying, you haven't had a meeting yet, how could you say that? He said, well, I said it, and that's the end of it.
all right, well. I think bringing the attention to it is key. I think one of the things I've noticed with these, and I don't have statistics to prove it, I've never talked to anyone that knows, but they seem to be faster than mopeds.
Oh, they're way faster.
So they can stay with traffic. Like I have a sort of, before I'm done, I may have an article someday that says no more passing of cars on Nantucket. Okay, but no, and I am a firm believer in no passing of a bicycle till you get to East Creek Road out of town.
The mopeds that are rented.
And this brings more attention to that because there's going to be more and more of these things, but they do go with the traffic. There isn't really a need to pass them in most cases.
The mopeds that are rented by the two or three companies are regulated at a top speed of between 20 and 25 miles an hour. So even if they wanted to go faster, they could.
Okay.
The electric bicycles that are rented can go up to 40 miles an hour. So you're right, they are faster than the mopeds that are, or most of them. If you buy a private moped or a private scooter and it's not regulated, they can go up to 60 miles an hour.
Wow.
Most of the ones you see on island, though, are the ones that are rented, so they're kind of restricted in their speeds.
All right, so,
But thank you for the opportunity to explain this article. I'm not quite sure if I want to go through the hassle of arguing at town meeting. As I said, if the town fathers, the planning board, the select board, the FinCom, if they don't give a crap about the electric vehicles on the sidewalks, who am I to try to battle this?
I don't
Bruce,
think that's the case.
you might want to, since Mike Burns is back in the saddle, you might want to pen him an email with the article. And talk about the distinction between the two different sections of it, adding it to chapter 98 and then the other thing would be the bike path. And the article is not going to get called, although he could certainly put a recommendation in that it be so because he's interested in the first part of it. So
I will do that. I was communicating with the former town transportation guy, what's his name, Reed, but he quit.
Yeah.
And now I didn't know Burns was back, finally came
Yeah.
back. I thought that was just percolating.
no, he's back. It's been announced. And as far as I know, he's back at his monitor working from wherever but here.
All right, I'll try to find his email address. Maybe it's just mburns@nantucket-ma.
It should be,
He's-
Bruce.
Yeah,
He's
should be.
here.
If you can't find it, let us know. We'll track it down.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to discuss this with you, Pete.
All right, thanks, Bruce. You're welcome to stay unless you've got paint you want to go watch dry. So the next two items are actually Alan Reinhardt items. One is an update on the land bank last we talked about the land bank, was going to put in, some public way monuments, down and back of the, animal hospital, or clinic, or whatever the technical term is. And then the second thing, Alan had to report on was an update on the walking trails across the island. So Alan, either way, or however you want to blend it one into the other, go right ahead.
All right, well, let me do the walking trails a bit first. Remember, the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee, what drew me onto this committee many years ago, 1990, was the question of public access and how we get around the island and so on. A lot has changed in the last 32 years as far as population and so on. But one of the real breakthroughs that's happened has been the walking trails that are literally interlacing all the way across the island. And the main trails, of course, are by the Conservation Foundation, the Land Bank, the Linda Loring Foundation, and so on. The conservation groups have been working to encourage people to get out and actually explore these properties that are open now to the public. All of the conservation groups deal with public access. So anyway, just the recent projects, we have a Cross Island Trail now that is permanently marked literally from Sconset over to Settlers Landing and Madaket. There are a number of other trails, both north-south and east-west trails that have been developed on various conservation properties. So I think that's one of the breakthroughs, one of the achievements, let me put it that way, of the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee is this network of walking trails that is linking the island together. Public access, of course, the sidewalk program that we worked on. Remember, we did a sidewalk survey. We did every street in the downtown Nantucket, the old historic district, and that project is still ongoing. As a result of that project, we got $5 million or $1 million a year for 5 years to be invested in the downtown sidewalks. And we've seen that down on Straight Wharf, Easy Street, South Water Street, and so on. So I just wanted to point that out as one of the breakthroughs that we've done as far as walking trails and public access.
Alan, what's the status of a unified map?
It's still a work in progress, partly because so many new trails are coming online. You'll notice the land bank, for instance, they have put up 19 different property markers where we have a parking area. There's also a map of that particular property on the sign. And what I discovered in going around to viewing all the signs, if I took a picture of it on my iPhone, I can expand it to see the trail. So it's like, instead of having to take an iPad or something along with you, there are things like that. In terms of the public way monuments and so on, the land bank is still working. The land bank now controls the 1799 road that is by the animal hospital there. And it's part of a trail system that goes around that property, the Peter Folger homestead. There's a wonderful set of boardwalks through the wetlands in there, and again, a nice walking trail that goes around through there.
Alan, is that Westchester Road?
Yes, right. Westchester Extension.
Yes.
It's called. Yes. So we have two public footpath posts in behind the four fairgrounds. We're gonna place one of those on either side of where that, once that trail is established.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Anybody have any questions on those two topics from Alan? I actually, what I should have done, I believe, now that Bruce is gone, but we can still discuss it. What do we think about, I was a little confused on the verbiage of the article itself. But what do you think of the thought that if we're in agreement, that we support the addition of those identified vehicles to the verbiage of chapter 98? Do we want to do that and leave the 800-pound gorilla as far as bike paths off of it or not?
Bill, I'm going to say, as I did earlier, that with the uncertainty about the proponent of the article calling it, I think it would be premature for us to do or say anything. But it's a critical issue, and I think our action should be to make sure that Mike Burns knows that it's on our continuing agenda.
Okay, maybe if he takes a peek at it, we can invite him for the
Yeah.
next meeting. He can let us know. And it would have far greater impact, I think, if the transportation planner said, yeah, we should add that verbiage to 98 and call the article, and we could vote to support that process. So I just
Yeah,
wanted, I didn't want to leave that out there, so.
No, I agree. I think, you know, maybe having a motion with the length, you know, with a change to you know, for town meeting could be good. I mean, I didn't even know what Article 98 was, so I had no idea, you know. I mean, some of these things just drift in and out over decades. But Bill, you've been around a long time. Things just come and go. Sort of a summer only rule, you know what I mean? It's just how things are. But one of the things, though, you know, back to this again with he brought up the shoulders of the roads after I did. When you drive off Island, just go to Mary Dunn Road in Hyannis. I mean, they got a shoulder. We like crappy roads. We actually encourage crappy roads. New Street in Sconset was put back exactly the way it was, without a berm. It's all washed out right now. Go look if you don't believe me. And we like this stuff. I mean, this is something I've been sort of behind the scenes, sort of working on a lot of these little things, the mopeds downtown, loading zones, yellow lines. It's impossible to fix some of these things. It requires a complete, like, somebody so dedicated that they lose their mind to try to solve some of this stuff. Coordinate Road right now is so dangerous because of the broken edges. It's only 17 feet wide, Alan. You know, you see me on the side of the road with a tape measure. I'm measuring the width of a road. I'm not measuring something else. I'm a nutcase. That's what I do. It's amazing. And we complain about things, and it's like we don't have any place for these people to go. So when the first 10-foot bike path was put in, bet you can't guess where it is. The little one on Eel Point Road is the first 10-footer. That's the smartest thing we ever did. They should be 12 feet. We redid Sunset Road, the entire road in 2009, and did the bike path at 8 feet. And we have a 150-foot layout. Wasn't any space for another couple feet, couldn't do it. These are the things that happen, that it's impossible to fix some of these things. So we need to start fresh with not just coming up with rules, but coming up with solutions.
So,
Helmets and sidewalks, in my opinion, Bill, for now.
with the consensus of the board, if I get it, I would propose that I send Mike Burns a welcome back note.
Yep.
Invite him to our, because I believe May 2nd is the ATM, correct?
It's Saturday, May 6th, I think. It is the Saturday.
Okay, so May 6th, okay. So if I invite him to the April 18th meeting, our April 18th meeting, specifically to discuss Article 71 or whatever the correct number is. And see what his, if he has buy-in on that or not. And then we can decide after hearing from him whether we need to take a vote to support that or whatever. So.
Good plan. Bill, it's a good plan.
All right, so is that okay with everybody? Okay. I
Yeah,
will
good.
add that. All right, anybody have anything else to bring up? We are now, I sent, I gave a call to Liz, I believe her name was, from the Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin. Yeah,
And let her know that because Ed and the subcommittee report for what they found on the Sconset Bluff wasn't quite ready for prime time to release, that we weren't going to have, and the fact that Ed was not going to be here tonight. So we pulled it from the agenda, let her know so she wouldn't be hanging here waiting for it. And I will tell you that I shared with her one of the things that she had brought forward to us was the possibility that the entity out there, and she made a very distinct point that it's not Sconset Trust folks, even though she's part of that group. It's the residents, abutters along the Sconset path, the bluff. And if you remember back, one of the things that they said they might possibly want to do was to look at some sort of, at the time, the term security was used. But given the latest discussions about security on town areas, namely Old North Wharf, I suggested that they may want to rethink that discussion to docent, guide, learning experience, call it anything, don't call it security. So that when the time comes for the discussion, they aren't going down the wrong path right from the get-go. So she took that as under advisement, and so that's the skinny on that. And anybody have any other business? No.
no, I just appreciate everyone's time. Sorry about the lengthy statements about to Bruce. I do appreciate his diligence, though, even if we disagree a little bit on a few things. He's not wrong about this. It's just a question of how do we start? These things have come out of nowhere, and they're gonna be, wait till this summer.
Well, it's like
There's gonna be more of them.
it's like a majority of the issues that we talk about either here or they talk about the select board meeting or the Board of Health meeting or whatever. It all comes down to the ability to enforce whatever the rules are. And there's no staff, there's no money to do the stuff.
Wow.
And oftentimes you have to hope that peer pressure from
Yeah.
budding folks strive and help enforce the stuff. But as we see, more and more of our visitors and quite frankly, our residents couldn't care less about some stuff that.
Well,
that's
I
frustrating.
think people come here to not be in a police state. I think I remember back with Lepre with the helmets, and he wasn't wrong about that. I saw two summer visitors getting stopped by the cops on Union Street. This is years ago now. I can't remember when, 15, 12, whatever it was. And they were getting a mouthful from a cop. And they just got here, rented the bikes. That isn't the experience you want to have. But this issue's kids. These are kids that, like he said, 12, 14-year-olds zipping around sidewalks. And there's a couple walking. And they can get whacked with one of these things. I mean, we've never had anything like this before. This is completely different. There weren't mopeds on the sidewalks. Not true. There's not been mopeds on the bike paths. Not true. This is different. This is entitled, I think it's partially due to the green movement, that this is an acceptable thing because it's not burning gas and it's kind of kooky, but I like them myself. It's just, we gotta be normal. We gotta find a new normal, like a lot of other things.
Well, the town's already had issues on town property, meaning the school.
Yeah,
where,
I know.
Teachers got hit, and the bikes or the vehicles or whatever the heck you want to call them, and now have to be, or supposed to be walked on and off of the property.
Yeah.
But like
Okay.
anything else, you know, I mean, back 2,000 years ago, when I was going to Academy Hill, I was a crossing guard that had this stupid little striped strap-on vest. and
Yeah,
whatever.
I remember those.
And, you know, it was about enforcement back then. And, you know, there were some kids that you could pull over and say, you're not supposed to be riding up Huzzy Street the wrong way. And there was others, when you saw them coming, you stepped into the hedges, so you could say, I never saw them. So, anyway. All right, well, thanks, everybody.
Huzzy Street to Westminster Street. You
Yeah.
are correct.
Thanks, everybody, for your time.
All right.
And, Lee, thanks again for getting the minutes in such a concise arrangement. And we'll work on next agenda, and hopefully everybody's internet is up and stays that way.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
That was by Nat, second by Rob. Roll call. Alan Reinhardt,
Hi.
Lee Saperstein,
Aye.
Matt Lowell,
Aye.
Bill Smith,
Aye.
Rob Rainey,
Aye.
and Chair says aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Night. Take care.